And now let's get behind the headlines. Saudi Arabia is considering whether to sell shares in its vast state oil company Aramco. The country's public finances have been badly hit by the 70% plunge in the price of crude oil over the last 18 months. Analysts estimate Aramco is worth over $1 trillion, so even selling off a minority stake of 20% could fund the kingdom's budget for a whole year. Jeremy Howell has more.
Under the sands of Saudi Arabia lie an estimated 268 billion barrels of crude oil, 16% of all the known reserves on Earth, and Saudi Aramco has the monopoly on it. Take the world's biggest listed oil company, Chevron. It's 10 times larger than that. The Saudi government says the company is worth trillions of dollars. It plans either to sell a portion of Saudi Aramco's shares on the capital markets or to create a subsidiary of its exploration and production arm and sell that off. Saudi Arabia relies chiefly on its oil exports to fund government spending. Due to the slump in oil prices, the government's deficit has soared to $98 billion over the past year, forcing the kingdom to dip into its reserves. Selling the nation's shareholders a stake in Saudi Aramco should return billions of dollars to government coffers. But this may also be seen as part of a broader plan to introduce free market reforms into Saudi Arabia. Recently, the government also slashed generous subsidies on food and fuel to try and reduce the state's role in the economy. Jeremy Howell, BBC News.
Let's take a closer look at all of this now with Alex Schindler, news editor at Energy Intelligence. Good to see you, Alex. So, Aramco, they've never published results. Not very much is known about them. This is something that would worry, one would think, typical investors from, say, London or the US. So who is going to be buying these shares?
Well, I think the first thing to think about is that who is this IPO for? And I think people are asking questions, is it for international investors or is it for local Saudi investors? For international investors, they'll be asking that same question. Where's the transparency? What does the company actually make for money? What's the profitability? All these sort of things. In that case, the company will have a fairly difficult task of sort of unwinding its sort of historical secrecy and providing that sort of information. But I think it's probably more geared towards a domestic audience.
And why is that? Why do you think that?
Well, because the domestic audience, we have to view this in the scope of broad domestic energy reforms that the government has been putting in place for the last year, not necessarily a response only to the decline in oil prices.
Free market reforms in Saudi Arabia.
Basically. So what happened last month was that the government raised subsidy prices on the local population. And that will sort of hurt the valuation of some of the companies on the stock market that depended on low energy prices. So what this could be is sort of a swap or something you dangle to the population to say, okay, yes, we're raising prices on fuel, gasoline, diesel, gas, but in exchange you might have a chance to get a slice of the largest oil company in the world, and that is a very compelling proposition if you're a Saudi national.
Very compelling, allowing them to have a slice of the huge oil wealth that they sit upon. Because what do we know about this company despite its secrecy? Is it well run? Is it efficient?
Well, I think if you compare Saudi Aramco to other national oil companies, and on that metric, you look at them across different national oil companies in different countries. I mean, Saudi Aramco is one of the best run of all the national oil companies. And so if you had told someone, look, you will have a chance to invest in a national oil company, and Saudi Aramco will be one of them, I'm sure almost any investor, if they're interested in national oil companies, would invest in